ancient civilizations in 10 minutes or less. In this series, we briefly cover major ancient cultures to give you a broad overview of their history, achievements, and legacy. The goal is to give you just enough information so that you can sound smart when people bring up these civilizations in conversation. And hopefully it'll be fun too. Anyway, let's get into it. The Aztec Empire, also known as the Triple Alliance, was a Mesoamerican society comprising of 3 connected but not unified city-states: Texcoco and Tlatelolco. These 3 were located in what is now central Mexico and dominated the region politically and militarily from the 14th to the 16th century CE. So let's learn about them. The Aztecs were the last great civilization to reach prominence in pre-Columbian America. They developed in the Valley of Mexico around the 13th century CE after a period of cultural and linguistic assimilation among various indigenous tribes. This process was initiated by the fall of the neighboring metropolis of Tula, which had itself replaced the Toltec Empire following its decline. Many of the Toltec subjects migrated northward to form new settlements, and others moved south to the Valley of Mexico, where they blended with the locals. This fusion of peoples created a new ethnic group who spoke a new dialect of Nahuatl, which would become known as Aztec. The Aztecs' first capital city was the island settlement of Tenochtitlan, founded in 1325 CE on a small archipelago within Lake Tech. Legend says that the nomadic Aztecs were wandering the countryside looking for a place to settle when they came across an eagle perched on a cactus holding a snake in its beak. This became the emblem of the Aztec Empire. But how did they build a city? According to the historian and poet Fernando de Alva, as the island grew, the Aztecs planted gardens and domesticated animals such as dogs and turkeys. They began trading with neighboring settlements and soon established a thriving market that attracted merchants from all over Mesoamerica. By the end of the 14th century, the city had grown considerably and was home to tens of thousands of people. By 1473, the Aztec alliance, comprised of Texcoco and Tlatelolco, controlled much of central Mexico. That year, the 2 neighboring city-states of Texcoco and Tlatelolco formed an alliance with the dominant power of Tenochtitlan. This alliance consolidated political control, boosted trade, and improved defense against outside attacks. Most importantly, it brought together the 3 most powerful merchant classes in the region. Tenochtitlan, Texcoco, and Tlatelolco controlled important trade routes leading to the Pacific coast. And the merchants of these cities supplied the rest of Mesoamerica with luxury goods like cacao, feathers, flowers, and incense. Despite the economic benefits, there were significant cultural differences between the 3 cities. Tenochtitlan was more conservative, Tlatelolco was more progressive, and Texcoco was somewhere in between. Scholars debate whether the alliance was a genuine partnership or a hegemonic domination by Tenochtitlan. Regardless, this alliance is usually considered the beginning of the Aztec Empire. Aztec society was organized into an imperial hierarchy with the king, or Hui Tlatoani, at the top. The emperor held supreme military, religious, and political authority, and was seen as a semi-divine figure. Below him were the nobles, followed by commoners, artisans, merchants, farmers, and slaves. Slavery in Aztec culture was hereditary and based on debt servitude. Prisoners taken in war could also be enslaved. While slavery existed, it wasn't necessarily brutal, as slaves could own property, gain their freedom, and even acquire political influence. The Triple Alliance expanded rapidly through a combination of diplomacy, conquest, and marriage. By 1494, the empire reached its greatest territorial extent, covering approximately 52,000 square miles and containing around 5 million subjects. Much of this expansion came at the expense of neighboring Mesoamerican cultures, such as the Maya and the Although the Aztecs weren't necessarily expansionist, they believed it was their destiny to rule all of central Mexico and protect the other subject cultures. To maintain order, a complex system of roads connected the empire's main cities. Messengers relayed messages and goods throughout the network, while a professional standing army kept the provinces in check. The Aztec economy relied heavily on tribute, labor, and trade. Conquered provinces were required to pay tribute in the form of goods, agricultural products, and men for labor. Tribute was collected by local officials and merchants traveling along the extensive road network. Trade flourished due to the introduction of the cacao bean as currency. Farmers produced food surpluses that fed the growing urban populations. Markets in cities like Tlatelolco were some of the largest in the world and attracted merchants from as far away as Panama and Peru. The abundance of exotic goods made Aztec cities centers of commerce and luxury. Religion played a central role in daily life. The Aztecs worshipped hundreds of gods, many of whom were shared with other Mesoamerican cultures. Their beliefs were polytheistic, animistic, and highly In other words, they believed everything had a soul and combined deities from other cultures into their own religion. For example, the rain god Tlaloc was originally a deity from the nearby Matlatzinca culture. Their most important god was Huitzilopochtli, the war god, whose heart was said to have been removed to create the sun. Another prominent deity was Cihuacotl, a fertility goddess who personified both the life-giving and life-taking aspects of motherhood. It was believed that the emperor was a descendant of the gods and the bloodline had to be kept pure. Human sacrifice was an important part of their religious practices, mainly to appease the gods and ensure the continued existence of the universe. Unlike the stereotypical view of Aztec religion, human sacrifices only accounted for a small percentage of deaths in the empire. Bloodletting rituals, on the other hand, were much more common and involved piercing the skin with thorns or sharp stones without causing death. In terms of their achievements, the Aztec built large temples made of stone and mortar. Although they are often overshadowed by the pyramids of other cultures like the Maya, the most famous of their temples, the Great Temple of Tenochtitlan, was dedicated to the gods Huitzilopochtli and Tlaloc. Construction began in 1473 and took 100 years to complete. It featured two distinct pyramids, each with a temple on top. Unfortunately, it was destroyed by the Spanish conquistadors in the 16th century. Still, we know a lot about it, thanks to the work of 18th century Mexican scholar and artist Diego Duran. His Codex Duran contains detailed descriptions and illustrations of pre-Hispanic Mexico. It includes an accurate description of the Great Temple, as well as other monuments and neighborhoods and Speaking of art, Aztec sculpture was incredibly diverse, ranging from monumental stoneworks to small figurines crafted from a variety of materials. One of the most recognizable types of Aztec sculpture is the monolithic colossal head. Monumental heads carved from solid stone were created during the post-classical period and represented important rulers or mythical figures. The sculptures were typically placed near entrances to royal palaces or temples. Another notable achievement was their calendar system, which was a sophisticated astronomical instrument used for religious and civil purposes. It consisted of two circular observatories aligned with the solstices and equinoxes, as well as a smaller rectangular structure used for tracking Venus. The Aztecs also possessed advanced knowledge of mathematics and developed a vigesimal counting system based on the number 20. They used a combination of dots and bars to represent numbers, with each bar representing 5 and each dot representing 1. As for their writing, the Aztecs didn't use a phonetic alphabet like the Spanish and English alphabets. Instead, they had a system called a logographic writing system, which assigned a symbol to each word. This made writing time-consuming since each symbol had to be written out individually. However, the Aztecs also used a pictographic writing system, which may have aided their record-keeping. Pictograms were used to record historical events, genealogies, and tribute accounts. Some historians believe the Aztecs invented the printing press several centuries before Gutenberg, but this is disputed. If true, it would have been a revolutionary invention, since they carved wooden printing blocks instead of metal ones. Sadly, the Aztec Empire was brought to an end by the Spanish conquistadors led by Hernán Cortés. The Aztec ruler at the time was Moctezuma II, who had taken the throne in 1502. When Cortés arrived in 1519, he was received as a god by the Aztecs. He stayed in Tenochtitlan for several months and negotiated trade deals, observed religious ceremonies, and learned But in 1520, tensions escalated and the Spaniards attacked the city. Known as the Noche Triste Sad Night, the attack caught the Aztecs off guard and they suffered heavy casualties. Moctezuma was killed in the fighting, and his successor, Cuauhtémoc, was unable to effectively resist the Spanish. The Aztecs fought back against the invaders, but smallpox brought over by the Europeans devastated the population and weakened resistance. By 1521, the Spanish had captured Tenochtitlan, and the Aztec Empire was no more. So why does any of this matter? Well, the Aztec Empire represents the pinnacle of pre-Columbian American civilization. Its achievements in art, architecture, religion, and governance provide valuable insights into the ingenuity and complexity of pre-European contact societies. Furthermore, The Aztec story serves as a cautionary tale about the impact of European colonialism on indigenous populations. The Spanish conquest of the Aztec Empire resulted in the destruction of a vibrant culture, the decimation of its population, and the loss of countless lives. Studying the Aztec helps us understand the lasting effects of colonialism and the importance of preserving cultural diversity. Thanks for watching. If you want to watch more videos like this, hit the subscribe button. And if you want to watch more videos about ancient civilizations, check out the Ancient Civilizations playlist. Thanks again for watching, and see you next time.